This is a Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. This is an HTC One M9. You're watching our comparison. Now the S6 Edge and M9 have quite similar profiles this way around. Because of that curve, Vlad from The Verge pointed out, it kind of feels like this should be held this way, but it doesn't look that way. Even though he's absolutely right about the enhanced sensation, this feels weird, this feels sharp. This does feel cold, metal and stark though, which is a good thing, but it looks like it should be screen up because that is something that should be cherished. That look, that feel, it's totally different from anything that we have seen before. So kudos Samsung for throwing something different out to mass market. The HTC One M9, rather than being a revolution, is an evolution of a design, and it looks incredibly premium. It is a very handsome device with a two-tone finish, all metal body, and a very good in-hand sensation. As to how they stack up against each other, they both feel great. The Galaxy S6 Edge's screen edge-to-edge curve really does make it stand out in a way that no other phone can. But the HTC One M9's build quality just feels like the richest device out right now in many ways. This and the iPhone, 3 of the best phones ever made in terms of design, hands down. As for how they stack up against each other, in the hand, you've got big screens on both, so these are big devices. They're not too dissimilar in terms of height. The HTC One M9's a little bit taller, but that's because you've got those boom sound front-facing speakers. As for how big the screens are, it's 5.1 inches versus 5 inches, so not much in it. Both have front-facing cameras, 4 megapixels, 4 ultra pixels, so great low light performance on that of the HTC One M9. The Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge's is 5 megapixel front-facing camera. You've got a Quad HD display with a pixel density of 577 pixels per inch. It's Super AMOLED screen technology. The HTC One M9 has an LCD3 display, an SLCD3, and it is also 441 pixels per inch, so significantly lower resolution of full HD. Still, you can't make out a pixel on either of these devices, so that is definitely something worth considering. The Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, though, has to be said, gets a hats off for sheer tech spec on that front. Below the screens, you've got the R part of the stereo speaker on the M9, and you've got a fingerprint scanner as well as 2 capacitive buttons on the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. Right hand side, power buttons on both. The One M9 has volume buttons as well as a micro SD card slot. Down at the base, micro USB connectors and 3.5mm jacks, loudspeaker, mono loudspeaker on the S6 Edge, so we don't anticipate mind-blowing sound, but we have just got this in. This is not a review by any means, so we can't say for sure. Right hand side, volume buttons, up at the top, an infrared blaster. You've also got an infrared blaster on the HTC One M9 with right hand side housing a nano SIM card slot. On the back of both devices are cameras. On the One M9, it's a 20 megapixel camera, f2.2 lens, and it is a Toshiba sensor dual flash NFC contact point, as well as an HTC insignia. Brushed metal, rose gold around the sides, or gold around the sides. This two-tone finish really does feel beautiful. As for the back of the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge, you can see the edge itself is quite curved and quite stark actually. It's a flat side just to give you enough to comfortably get a hold of, but both devices have a degree of sharpness to them. The HTC One M9 was made much sharper so that it was more grippy than the M8 for it. You can see around the back, 16 megapixel rear facing camera with optical image stabilization, flash and a fingerprint scanner. Glass front and back, 2 glorious feeling devices with 2 very good screens. We will say from the offset that the screen on the HTC One M9 looks like it's got beautiful whites, whereas that general AMOLED saturation kind of comes through on the S6 Edge, even though the S6 Edge is much more pleasing to look at because of that punch pop. It makes the user interface feel almost like it's jumping out of the screen at you, which is only a good thing. Great to see how these two fare in movies, pictures, and indeed a color chart. Look forward to our full review for that. As for what's inside, it is Android 5.0 on both devices, 2 different user interfaces with a lot of similarities. You can see what we've actually done is we've turned off Flipboard Briefing. Flipboard Briefing and Blink Feed are very similar things actually. If we tap through, Flipboard Briefing will enable us to access various news elements directly to the screen, or left-hand side screen, just like Blink Feed. What's nice about Blink Feed though is that it throws social media, calendar information, as well as those news elements in there. I actually prefer Blink Feed altogether. It's more customizable. Both can be switched off very easily, as you can see. Just drag Blink Feed to the top and remove it, or keep it on there. I actually keep blink feed on generally, and flipboard briefing I generally turn off, which probably says something about both. If we jump through to the user interfaces, you can see both can be populated with home screens and widgets as well. 2 notification trays. You've got a dual pull down notification tray on the HTC One M9, which is much more akin to stock Android 5.0. Instead, you've just got this one tier on the S6 and S6 Edge with this horizontally scrolling bar of widgets. Pull both up and we can jump into the applications tray. Again, horizontally scrolling versus vertically scrolling. The HTC One M9's user interface really is great like that. It complements the long form factor of the phone, pronounced because of those speakers. You can also add a shortcut to bring down your quick settings and notifications with a button on the right hand side for any smaller hands out there, which is great. Don't know if anything like that exists on the S6 Edge, as we have just got that in. One other thing you can do is you can swap out themes very easily on both devices. So if we pinch out, you can see there's a themes button on here, and we can move to pink or space. We're not connected to a network right now, so we can't do that, but what we can do is illustrate the ways you can swap out themes on the HTC One M9. High quality themes out of the box like this one, and loads more downloadable, so HTC's done a great job of that. You can see we've got the theme store here, but if we just take a simple picture, let's take one of the S6 Edge for example, and we can open up that picture. We can tap on themes. We can turn the S6 Edge into our theme. The first thing we'll want to do is we will want to put a filter through it so that it looks punchy, it looks poppy. Next, it's going to process that filter and we can crop it to shape, and we can press done. And that's cropped the photo right down. And now we can choose our icon set to go with it, and you can see it's generated icons and a color scheme based on that picture that I have taken. I want something quite lively, punchy and poppy, just like that, and so I'm going to press next, call it Edge 2, press OK, and give it a second. Theme as always, whatever device you have, take a second to populate the home screen. Theme applied, go home, and you can see it's generated a theme around the S6 Edge and an icon set to match, as well as a color scheme too, which is very elegant, nice, and a really fun way to personalize your phone with no headache on a daily basis. So now that we've covered the user interface of that, we can talk you through a few real key highlights on the S6 Edge. Obviously, you've got themes that you can customize, but there are some cool utility features of the Edge itself that we haven't spoken about. If this device is face down on a surface, you can assign colors to 5 contacts, and if they call, it will light up that color on the surface below so you know who is calling. So if you are indeed in a meeting, you can see who's calling, and you can send an automated reply by putting your finger over the heart rate monitor. What you can also do is, if you have a missed call, you can bring in from the Edge information about that missed call, and you can also throw in some quick contacts on the right hand side as well. It's really simple stuff. It's nothing too mind-blowing, nowhere near as extensive as on the Samsung Galaxy Note Edge, but hopefully either A, that'll be useful, and B, Samsung may well supplement that Edge feature as time goes on. Moving on to those cameras, and the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge's 16 megapixel camera impressed us at MWC. Double tap the home button and it launches in 0.7 seconds. Now you can see I took a quick picture there, and it is a quick blurry picture. Double tap it again, and if I give it a second to focus, which it does quickly, I can take a better picture, and that is a very good picture right there. Or at least it looks nice and sharp. Now we can't comment on picture quality in low light, we haven't tested it, but the optical image stabilization suggests it will perform well. And we also can't comment about the front-facing camera performance. One thing we will say is that we were pretty disappointed with the HTC One M9's camera. It takes decent pictures in good light like we have here, and indeed we can focus, zoom in, and the high resolution 20 megapixel sensor has indeed taken a fairly good picture, but in low light it doesn't take a great picture at all. One thing that you can do though on the One M9, which you can't do on the S6 Edge in stock, is control full manual settings. So what those full manual settings will allow you to do is flick the ISO to 100, so nice and low, manually focus as well, so we can get it on the closest focal point, and take pictures after manually setting everything. And we've found that that delivers infinitely better results. So for example, I can zoom in to make sure I'm at the point that is best which to focus at, and it is right there. So I can pull up and I can take a picture, and I kept my hand nice and steady there, and you can see instantly we've generated a nice sharp picture with a fair degree of ambience there, and I've kept everything nice and low lit. So if you do want to control your manual settings, then you can really go to town on the One M9. And for you, it may even be the better camera, despite all the bad rap it's getting out there right now. But in the same breath, for people who just want to take a quick picture, point and shoot, the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge and S6 will definitely be the choices for you. As for the rest of the multimedia experience, we can imagine it's going to have no problem plowing through games and music. Octa-core processor, 64-bit Exynos chipset. In addition to that, the screen is great, so movies will look great, although the speaker may not do as good a job. We highly doubt it will, as the dual stereo speakers, or the stereo speakers even, on the One M9. It's also worth pointing out that the One M9 stereo speakers work well with the boom bass, and of course they have Dolby Tech in there too to improve the experience. Very clean sound. As far as the processors go, it's Exynos versus Qualcomm, Snapdragon 810 versus Exynos Octa with 64-bit architecture in both. It's also worth noting that you have fixed storage in the S6 and S6 Edge, 64 gigabytes as is this model, 32 gigabytes for the lower variety, and you've got 128 gig max capacity. As for the HTC One M9, all of them have 32 gigabytes, but they're expandable by micro SD card, so the potential for a larger storage capacity. In addition to that, both devices have 4G, though the M9 in certain regions will go up to Cat 9 LTE. Cat 6, think it is a cap for the Samsung Galaxy S6. But in the UK, you have nothing to worry about there. But if you're on EE, you're only really starting to experience low Cat 6 speeds in central London. As for the remaining specs, there isn't really much in it. Battery capacity is something we can't really talk about too heavily. 2840 milliamps versus 2600, but with two different processors, two different screens, and not having reviewed the S6 Edge, we really can't say that HTC One M9 doesn't fare too well for power users. For light to moderate users, you will easily get a day out of this thing, creep into the second day, but for power users, it will likely die by around 6 p.m. Altogether, these are two of the finest phones around. The HTC One M9 disappointed a lot of people on the camera front, and we can see why. It disappointed us, but the plain automatic mode isn't the whole story. You can also apply loads of picture effects. Check out our full review to see what we're talking about. So that's been my comparison between the HTC One M9 and Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. Two beautiful phones which feel great and do a great job of showcasing Android 5.0 in different variations. It'll be really interesting to see how the S6 Edge's battery performs. That's probably the thing that we're most curious about. Everything else we anticipate it will fare quite well in, especially design. The One M9 as well did fare badly in terms of camera in pure automatic mode, but like we said, you can manual tinker with it till kingdom come, and that may well be perfect for